There is a whole category of people online that no one ever talks about. They are not influencers. They are not posters, and they are not here to impress. They are the silent ones. The ones who watch, the ones who scroll, the ones who never reveal a single thing about themselves. And you would be surprised how many of them exist. You might even be one of them. Because while the rest of the world is shouting for attention, there is a different kind of person moving quietly through the digital universe, gathering information without leaving a trace. This is the observer. The observer is the person who never updates their status, never shares their dinner, never uploads a selfie, and never announces the milestones of their life to strangers online. They do not feel compelled to prove anything to the world. They do not need applause to believe in their worth. They do not need likes to validate their choices. For them, privacy is not a preference. It is a principle. They are not hiding because they are insecure. They are hiding because they understand the value of not being seen. They know that once the world has information about you, it can form opinions about you. It can categorize you, predict you, judge you, and that is something the observer refuses to give away for free. Observers are not born. They are shaped. Some grew up around people who overshared, who revealed every feeling and every flaw to anyone who would listen, and they saw how dangerous that could be. Others learned early that transparency makes you vulnerable to manipulation. Some simply understood, long before everyone else did, that silence is power. At some point in their life, they realized that the less people know about them, the more control they have over their own narrative. The more distance they create, the more freedom they keep. They became the person who speaks only when necessary, who reveals only what is intentional, and who holds the rest in private where it cannot be touched. The observer does not stay quiet because they are shy or self-conscious. They stay quiet because they know exactly what they gain from withholding. When you do not post your opinions, no one can twist them. When you do not show your face, no one can judge it. When you do not reveal your moves, no one can interfere with them. The observer sees life like a chessboard. They know that the loudest players make the easiest targets. They know that the more predictable you are, the more controllable you become. So they choose the shadows. They choose stillness. They choose invisibility because it keeps them unpredictable, unreadable, and safe. Observers are excellent lurkers, but not in the creepy sense. They watch quietly because they want to understand human behavior. They study what people post, what they brag about, what they hide, what they exaggerate, what they desperately try to convince others of. They see through the filters. They see the insecurity inside the thirst trap. They see the loneliness behind the constant posting. They see the craving for validation behind every carefully curated highlight reel. They see the masks for what they are, not because they are judgmental, but because they are perceptive. And while everyone else is busy performing, the observer is busy learning. The observer has learned that being visible invites opinions. It invites projection. It invites misunderstanding. And they have spent their whole life trying to avoid those things. They do not want strangers interpreting their life. They do not want acquaintances analyzing their choices. They do not want to be an open book that anyone can flip through. They would rather watch than be watched. They would rather study than be studied. They would rather stay behind the curtain where their life belongs to them and not to the public. Because they do not speak as much, the observer listens. Because they do not post, they read. Because they do not perform, they pay attention to those who do. They notice patterns others miss. They recognize desperation disguised as confidence. They catch subtle shifts in tone, detail, and timing. They understand what people reveal accidentally far more than what they reveal intentionally. Observers are the ones who see the truth that slips out between the lines. They are quiet, but they are never blind. They understand people not because they interact constantly, but because they study at a distance where the view is clearer. Observers do not post because they have nothing to prove. Their self-esteem is internal, not crowdsourced. They do not need likes to feel relevant. They do not need compliments to feel attractive. They do not need attention to feel alive. Their sense of worth comes from themselves, not from the approval of digital strangers. And because they do not need to be admired or worshipped, they simply exist outside the performance culture that most people take part in. They live their life quietly, privately, and peacefully without the pressure of constant disclosure. To many people, the observer looks cold, aloof, withdrawn, or unfriendly. People assume they have no personality because they do not broadcast it. They assume the observer has nothing going on because nothing is posted. But the truth is almost always the opposite. The observer is often the one living the richest inner world, the one with the deepest thoughts, the one with the most interesting life that no one gets to see. They are not lonely. They are selective. They are not socially afraid. They are socially uninterested. They are not secretive. They are protective. The observer does not need to change. They do not need to force themselves into a digital spotlight that never suited them. They do not need to post more or share more or tell more. What they need is simply the permission to remain private in a world that demands exposure. Their lifestyle is not outdated. It is not strange. It is not antisocial. It is intentional. And as more people grow weary of performing for screens, the observer begins to look less like an outsider and more like someone who understood the truth long before the rest of us did. Privacy is a form of intelligence. Silence is a form of power. Observation is a form of awareness. And the observer knows that the less you reveal, the more you control. They are not hiding. They are choosing. And that choice is their freedom.